Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good morning and salam sajahdra to all of our respected participants, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Khairul Islam, Senior Lecturer and Head of Energy Supply Industry Unit at the Institute of Energy Policy and Research, in short, IPRI, University Tenaga National. I believe you all are doing well and staying safe and blessed in this unprecedented and global pandemic. It is truly an honor for me and immense pleasure to welcome you to the third series of Energy Live webinar on behalf of IPRI. I strongly believe most of you are familiar about IPRI, but today we are being delighted to introduce IPRI once again. IPRI was officially initiated on 11th August 2009 as part of Uniten's strategic transformation initiative to spread research and consultancy activities. IPRI has received a strong support from Tenaga National Barhad, Energy Economics, and several ministries as well. The establishment of IPRI is very much timely as Malaysia needs to focus on the energy and environment, which would contribute to the government, corporations, and other stakeholders in making informed decisions. Today's webinar is continuing from the last two sessions, which was held on 12th May and 21st of October 2020. As you already informed, on this third webinar, our honorable guest speaker is Professor Dr. Ken Koyama, Chair of Energy Economy of Energy Commission and Chief Economist at the Institute of Energy Economics, Japan, in short, IEJ, will be highlighting on the title of Energy Outlook Towards 2050 and Post-Corona Scenario. For your further information, this webinar is being recorded and is scheduled for 1 hour, including 20 minutes allocated for question and answer session. If you have any questions and any clarification further, please type your questions on the Q&A feature. Before we begin, let me take this opportunity once again to introduce to our distinguished and eminent professor, Dr. Ken Koyama. He is currently attached as a Senior Managing Director of Strategic Research Unit and Chief Economist at IEEJ. At the same time, he is a visiting professor at University of Tokyo and as an adjunct professor at the Institute of Technology Tokyo, Japan. He was awarded Brand Laureate International Brand Personality Award in 2016 and a committee member of Lord-Ups Committee in Japan and all around the world, including Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and members of International Advisory Board and Energy Academy of Europe. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Ken Koyama to deliver his talk. Please, Professor, the time is yours.
Okay. Dr. Kyle, thank you very much for your kind introduction. Very good morning to you all. I hope that everybody is well and safe under this uncertain and difficult time. I hope that also you can hear me well. And from now on, I would like to share my slide, which is also okay to you all. And first of all, it is a great pleasure and great honors to join this online event to discuss the long-term energy outlook published by IEEJ. Of course, I do prefer to have the non-virtual meeting to have the direct communication with you. And also, I really would like to visit you in Malaysia to have a face-to-face meeting. It is much, much easier and much better, but because of the constraint created by the pandemic and difficulties, we need to depend on this kind of technology, which is okay. But again, to me, I really prefer to have the real direct meeting, face-to-face meeting. So hopefully sometime this year, hopefully soon, we will be able to meet each other in a very stabilized situation in Malaysia and in Japan as well.
Professor, Prof, sorry to interrupt you. I believe that the slides is not projected yet.
No,
that's why
I didn't share the slide
okay,
yet.
Okay.
So from
okay,
now
okay,
on,
okay.
now I will share
Thank you
my
very
slide.
much. Thank you very
Please
much.
wait for a moment. Can you see my slide at the full screen mode? I hope it's
Yes,
okay.
Professor. Yes, Professor. We can.
Okay.
Please.
So let's start. Firstly, I would like to draw your attention on what is happening now, or what is the situation we are facing with regard to the energy environment and all the challenge that energy stakeholders in Malaysia, Japan, and the world need to face. Firstly, and most importantly, we are still amidst the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, there are some good news and signs that the availability of vaccines are spreading in the world, and hopefully sometime within this year, situation can be normalized or stabilized, but still it is uncertain. And because of the difficulties and uncertainties created by the pandemic, energy market in the world was affected very, very severely. The last year, we witnessed the very significant oversupply of energy and lower energy prices. So global energy industry suffered a lot because of the oversupply and low energy price. But again, things are moving. Yesterday, the benchmark crude oil price, WTI in the United States, topped $63. So it's almost sees the recovery from the January last year, before the pandemic started. But still, we should be very cautious about what's going to happen with regard to the effect of the pandemic, in particular, the effect on the global economy and the restriction on our movement, transportation, and the travel. That will have a big implication on energy demand. And also, I would like to point out the very important change which happened in the United States. United States in the past decades became the most important energy market player because of the shale revolution. And until this January, Mr. Trump had the United States as the president. But now we have Mr. Biden. And what is the policy of Biden administration to counter the energy market, to counter the climate change challenges, is a very, very important topic for the world. Probably and hopefully, I may have a next chance to focus on this issue as a public webinar, but today I just point out the impact of the Biden administration in terms of the global energy market is clearly the important issues. And under the circumstance, Asia, including Malaysia and ASEAN countries, is going to be the very important player as a gravity center of the world energy market. And because of the difficulties, in particular between United States and China, the geopolitics is revisited and energy geopolitics is now being played out. And furthermore, we all understand that the many major countries in the world are very, very interested in the concept of carbon neutrality. Although the target year may differ slightly, some countries, the target year is 2050, some country like China, target year is 2060s. All major countries are now hoping to achieve the carbon neutrality status in the long run. But of course, this is a very challenging energy and climate change policy. So naturally, not only the existing technology, but very advanced or sometimes innovative technology need to play if we really want to achieve the carbon neutrality. This is the situation that we are now facing. And put it very simply, because of this current situation, the uncertainty for the future is very, very large. And because of the uncertainties, IEJ made a kind of scenario studies to look for the future of the world energy market up to the year 2050. The latest IEJ Outlook, we call it IEJ Outlook 2021, was published October last year. And the latest IEJ Outlook features two types of scenarios. One is a regular scenario, and the other is this year's special highlight scenario. The regular scenario includes two types of scenario as a benchmark. One is a reference scenario. This is a business as usual future. In other words, the ongoing trend of energy supply demand and market development, technology development, policy development will continue in the future. So the future is not so much different in terms of the change of the speed as of now. Another regular scenario as a benchmark is Advanced Technology Scenario, ATS. This is a very unique scenario made by IEJ. Why unique? The reason is that we are based on the so-called bottom-up approach. We made an expert judgment with regard to the diffusion and utilization of various energy-related technology in all the energy sectors and all the energy supply chain. The maximum introduction of energy-related technology was assumed in this ATS, Advanced Technology Scenario. And this is a very contrary approach to the top-down approach employed by many long-term forecasters like IEA. IEA's, International Energy Agency's Sustainable Development Scenario, SDS, is a very typical example of top-down approach, which means if we really want to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal, the world future should be like this. It's a backcasting approach, top-down approach. But on the contrary to this type of analysis, IEJ made this bottom-up approach. What is this year's highlight? I would like to explain today two major highlighted scenario. One is a post-corona world transformation scenario, PCS, and the other is circular carbon economy for our scenario, CCE. Of course, IJ every year made a special focus on the cost benefit or total cost minimization analysis of the climate change. So I would like to briefly touch upon the latest update of this cost benefit or total cost minimization analysis. This slide simply illustrates the result of the reference case scenario up to the year 2050. On your left-hand side, the energy demand projection by country region. And you can easily find that in this reference business as usual scenario, global energy demand is projected to continue to rise. As compared to the level of 2018, the total energy demand in the 2050 is higher by 30%. It's a significant increase in energy demand backed by economic growth. And you can see the breakdown of the country by country or regional demand growth pattern. And you can see the downside of the picture, China continued to be the very important energy market. But gradually, India, ASEAN, Africa, Middle East, Latin America, and other non-OECD or emerging markets will become the major part of the energy demand growth. This can be illustrated on the right-hand side picture. The growth breakdown between 1990 to 2050, the gray part of the graph will show, indicate the demand growth during the period of 1990 to 2018, the past 3 decades. And you can see the growth is really dominated by China in the bottom part of the slide. China was so important as a growth center of the global energy demand. And China continued to see that the demand growth, which is shown in the red part of the graph, the incremental between 2018 to 2050. So in this regard, China continued to be a very important story. But as you can see, by looking at the red part of the graph, India's incremental in ASEAN, Africa, Middle East is much, much larger than that of China. So from now on, the gravity center will shift from China to other emerging markets, in particular India and ASEAN. And this next slide will see the breakdown by energy source. Put it very simply, almost all types of energy continue to be very important. Coal demand in this reference scenario will see the gradual decline or peak demand, peak out. Oil demand will see the very slow, steady growth up to the year 2050. Natural gas, we will see the very strong growth. Again, on your right-hand side picture, the breakdown between breakdown of the growth between 1990 to 2018 and to 2050, it is indicated on the graph, divided by advanced economy, upper side, and emerging and developing economy and downside. So emerging and developing economy, every energy source will see the growth, even up to the year 2050. But interestingly, advanced economies, upper side, you can see the only renewable energy will see the significant growth, followed by the slight growth in natural gas, but all the other energy sources, nuclear, oil, coal, will see the decline in the case of advanced economies. As these is a result of difference case as a benchmark, now I would like to explain about the result of post-corona world transformation scenario, PCS. In this PCS, what is assumption? What is a picture of the future is shown in the second part of this table. PCS is a world in which the coronavirus pandemic causes transformation and changes in politics, economy, and society. And climate measures continue to be strengthened, but the extent of the effort differs in each country and in the region. And in this PCS, the major keyword are twofold. One is emphasis on security. The other is a progress of digitalization or digital formation. What that means? The security emphasis means in this PCS, major countries pay much attention on the survival of the country and citizen and ensuring safety and health of people, including measure against infection and even the vaccine. And these are the very, very important prerequisite for the survival of respective countries. Under the circumstance, geopolitical tension is much, much higher. Me first and strong nationalism is a key feature of this scenario. So under the circumstances, every country needs to pay attention to secure the important and strategic goods for their countries and for their citizens so that the global supply chain may be affected. The current global supply chain is constructed under the concept of total economic efficiency maximization or total cost minimization. Even if we need to pay extra money, extra cost, the global supply chain may be reconsidered. And also the digitalization will play a very important role, simply because under the post-corona world, digital information technology will be a very important tool for social life, economic life, and political life. And all in all, it will lead to the significant change in our energy economics. First of all, the global GDP will decline vis-a-vis the difference case scenario as a benchmark. On your left-hand side, you can see the orange line, which will shows the 10% decline or reduction in GDP, global GDP, as compared to the difference scenario. And not only the 10% global decline of GDP, there's a difference by country or by region in terms of the change in the GDP change rate. You can see this difference in the down part of the left-hand side picture, and put it simply, the global supply chain will be different from the different scenario, which is the outflow from China to inflow to India and ASEAN. And because of the difference in the GDP growth, the primary energy demand will decline as compared to the reference scenario. And again, the demand growth reduction is larger in case of China and not so large in case of India and ASEAN. You may remember, even in the reference case scenario, there's a gravity shift in the gravity center to India and ASEAN. And this post-corona scenario, this gravity center shift will be accelerated. And furthermore, it is very important to note the very large change can happen in the area of oil demand. In the reference scenario, oil demand will continue to rise mainly because of the growth in emerging and developing economies, which is shown on your right-hand side picture in the middle. But this post-corona scenario, which is shown on your right-hand side picture in the red line, the oil demand will peak because of the social economic transformation caused by pandemic. As compared to the blue line, different scenario, this PCS will see 14 million barrels per day oil demand reduction in the year 2050. So just only for this social transformation, we will see the large decline in oil demand, and oil demand peak will happen. But you may ask me, maybe this is the peak demand, but the peak demand and the reduction in oil demand may not so large. Yes, it is true, because you can see this kind of long-term projection very frequently. Some of the long-term projection, like the orange line shown in the BP net zero scenario, the purple line, IEA SDS, we'll see that a very strong oil demand peak from now on. As compared to these figures, the previous orange line is a very moderate oil demand peak. But please note, this difference between blue line and orange line is just made by the transformation of social life and economic life only. And this IEA, our BP's very strong oil demand peak scenario, is built on the concept of climate change measure. In other words, the top-down approach. If we really want to achieve the climate goal in the year 2050, oil demand should be like this. So this is a very different animals between these two scenarios and IEJ's oil demand peak scenario caused by pandemic. So in other words, on top of this social economic transformation, if we really see that the very strong measure taken to counter the climate change, we will see that much stronger oil demand reduction in the future. And oil demand will be reduced because of the social transformation in PCS, and the main actor for this social transformation is digitalization, digital transformation. As you can see from your right-hand picture, again, the blue line and the orange line, the electrification rate in post-corona scenario will be accelerated by 2 points in the year 2050. Even in the reference case, electrification will progress, but because of the social transformation, electrification rate is higher than the case of as compared to the benchmark of reference scenario. And this means electricity is going to be more and more important for our future energy life. But for this very important energy source, energy tool, electricity, there are 4 major big challenges symbolized by 4D: decarbonization, deregulation, digitalization, and decentralization. These 4D keywords will become the very important clue to understand the complexity and difficulties of electricity economic in the future and in the world, simply because that 4D challenges are very complicated relation. Sometimes it stands on trade-off. And also, when that electricity is going to be more and more important, electricity price affordability and electricity supply security or stability is very important. But in the real world, we are seeing the big challenge as a threat or risk for this price affordability and supply stability, namely large-scale increase in VRE, variable renewables, and implication of market reform, reduced supply surplus and cushion, and cybersecurity, and extreme weather, effect of extreme weather. You may note that early this year, Japan suffered a very severe cold snap, which caused the electricity supply shortage. And now, the last 2 weeks, we saw that the very significant blackout and very significant power market shortage happened in the United States, in particular the state of Texas. So when the electricity is going to become more important, in particular caused by the social transformation in the post-corona world, these are the very important challenge that we need to pay attention to, in particular, the energy and electricity policymaker and electricity industries. And in PCS, we will see the emergence of innovative technology in the power mix. You can see the blue part in the year 2050. The contribution of hydrogen will start to emerge in the post-corona. On your right-hand side picture, by region, we will see the contribution of the growth by type of power generation. You can see substantial amount of contribution will become available in various form of energy from the various form of energy, but clearly that the hydrogen will become one of the option. Why hydrogen in this scenario? This is based on the concept of the security, emphasis on security, and high tension in the geopolitical world. Under these circumstances, the winner in the geopolitical tension world will be the winner of the high technology. That's why many countries in this scenario will pursue to develop the innovative technology like hydrogen. Now I'd like to go on the next story about the ATS, Advanced Technology Scenario. On your right-hand side, on your left-hand side picture, you can see the ATS will see the significant improvement of energy efficiency vis-a-vis to the reference case scenario. Actually, the advanced technology scenario will see that almost 15% energy consumption or energy saving. And by type of energy source, which is indicated on your right-hand side picture, the fossil fuel will see that the significant reduction in case of ATS, which is shown that solid line. The dotted line is a projection of reference case scenario. In particular, coal demand will peak very, very strongly. Oil demand will also see the very strong peak in ATS. Natural gas demand, shown in the orange line, will continue to rise, but much lower as compared to that reference case scenario. And at the cost of growth in fossil fuel, non-fossil fuel like renewable and nuclear power, green line and purple line will see that the strong growth. But even if there's a big change, the fact remains that the world will continue to depend on fossil fuel for about 70% in this ATS scenario in the year 2050. So under the circumstance, the latest IEJ outlook features the analysis of CCE, circular carbon economy. The circular carbon economy is a holistic approach to manage carbon emission as a closed circular system. And this CCSE aims to utilize all available emission reduction technology by the 4R steps: reduce, reuse, recycle, remove. Reduce means that reducing the amount of carbon entering the system. Reuse is reusing carbon without chemical conversion. Recycle is a recycling of carbon with chemical conversion, and remove is a removal of carbon from the system itself. And next, this rather busy table illustrates the assumption adopted for the analysis of CCE scenario by type of 4R technology. For example, for reduced technology, on top of the reduced technology, you can see the blue hydrogen for power generation. And the assumption is indicated in this column. Adopt the blue hydrogen power generation for 50% of coal-fired power plant without CCS facility as of 2050 in advanced technology scenario. And by doing this, we made an assumption for the maximum potential introduction of 4R technology based on the very detailed analysis. And the point of this analysis is clearly illustrated in this slide number 16. On your left-hand side, you can see that the trajectory of world CO2 emission by scenario. As a reference scenario, as a business as usual, we will continue to see the growth in CO2 emission. In advanced technology scenario, which is shown in the orange line, we'll see the very strong reduction of CO2 emission as compared to the reference. But the CCE shown in blue line will also see the further substantial reduction of CO2 emission as compared to ATS. And the point is that please look at the right-hand side picture. You can see the bar graph of the energy consumption pattern between the reference, ATS, and CCE in the year 2050. If you can compare with the bar graph of ATS and CCE, you can easily find that the energy consumption composite, energy consumption mix is not so different. In CCE, the world continued to depend on fossil fuel, just as a case of ATS. But again, if you look at the left-hand side picture, with the same dependence on fossil fuel, CCE will see the very strong, substantial reduction of CO2 emission. In other words, if we are successfully achieve CCE, we will see the deep CO2 emission reduction still while we are depending on the fossil fuel. The decarbonization of fossil fuel is a key solution, can be a key solution to entire world. This will be a very important implication, in particular to the developing world, Asian countries, and resource-rich countries. The slide 17 will illustrate the contribution made by technology. You can easily find the hydrogen power generation. Hydrogen transportation is a great contributor for the CO2 emission, and reduce technology as well as the remove technology is an important source of CO2 emission. And again, this slide will illustrate, we will see the very strong growth of hydrogen in CCE. In particular, if we can achieve CCE, the blue hydrogen as well as the green hydrogen manufactured from that renewable energy will play a very important role. In terms of power generation mix, on your right-hand side picture, the CCE scenario, the hydrogen will account for 5% of global total power generation mix. You may think that 5% is very small, but as compared to nothing in ATS, the emergence of hydrogen power generation in terms of 5% in the year 2050 is a very, very significant change if we look at the future of hydrogen for much, much longer term, 2060, 2070, the share of hydrogen power generation will become much, much larger. And because of this, we will see the very strong demand growth for hydrogen. And because in this scenario, hydrogen is produced from the fossil fuel, in particular natural gas, with CCE, CCS, we will see the hydrogen trade or hydrogen supply-demand balance on your right-hand side picture. The Middle East and North America will become the very important exporter of hydrogen, and ASEAN country may also become the exporter of hydrogen, while other Asian countries, Europe, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, India, China, will become the hydrogen importer. And because of the use of natural gas as a source of blue hydrogen, the demand for natural gas in the world will significantly increase as compared to ATS. So again, even though we continue to depend on fossil fuel in a big way, in particular, natural gas can play a very important role in this scenario. The last part of the scenario, I will briefly touch upon these issues. This is the slide to explain that the waves of carbon neutrality. The EU, the target year is 2050. China announced that the carbon neutral in 2060 last September. Japan last October made a carbon neutral target in the year 2050, followed by Korea. Now, Mr. Biden is the president of the United States, and he clearly targets the carbon neutrality in the year 2050. And these EU, China, Japan, Korea, United States account for almost 60% of global CO2 emission. The announced carbon emission target will clearly affect the international discussion and the dialogue in terms of the reduction of CO2. But as you can see, that the carbon neutrality is a very, very challenging target. Not at all easy. It's a really tough and very challenging issues. And of course, to reach, to close to the carbon neutral target, we need to very stringently promote the energy efficiency, energy saving, and non-fossil energy use, like renewable and nuclear power. And electrification, again, is the key because of the relative easiness to make zero emission in terms of electricity sector. But these prescription is not at all is sufficient if we really want to see the carbon neutrality. Innovative technology, innovative approach, such as hydrogen or even direct air capture is needed. But this innovation is very costly, of course. So minimization of transition cost to carbon neutrality is going to be a critical importance. And this simple chart illustrates the reality of our energy economics or energy world. The world still continues to depend on fossil fuel in a big way. More than 80% of our energy requirement comes from oil, gas, and coal. And in particular case for Asia, the dependence on coal is very high. So how to shift this fossil fuel dependent economy to carbon neutral economy is a great, great challenge. Some people ask us so-called leapfrogging to the carbon neutral status, but IJ always proposed from the viewpoint of total cost minimization. We will need to pay an optimal pathway to protect our environment. You may remember that IJ's advocation is the total cost minimization pathway is possible. If we pay too much money or too much cost for the mitigation only, the cost for the adaptation and cost for damage can be very small, but the cost for mitigation is too large, which is shown on the path 3 on your right-hand side picture. And if we do nothing, very little about the mitigation, the cost of adaptation and cost for damage, green and red part, is very large, shown in the path 1. But we may be able to find the total cost, mitigation, adaptation, and damage cost can be found in path 2 as a conceptually, and based on our own modeling, our own specially made modeling tool, we can find the simplistic total cost minimization pathway for the world. But the problem for the simplistic total cost minimization is that we will see the global temperature rise is about 2.6 degrees, which is too high. So that's why we made a special analysis for 2 degrees cost minimization pathway, which is indicated as 2 degrees path. And on your right-hand side picture, the total cost, cumulative cost in the long term can be shown in this right-hand side picture, while reference blue violet bar and as well as green part mitigation emphasis scenario, the 2 degrees pathway is much smaller. The total cost is smaller. Although simplistic optimal cost pathway, the total cost is much lower, but still, even if we can keep 2 degrees, we may be able to find the total cost minimization pathway. But there are lots of criticism and challenge for this cost-benefit total cost minimization analysis. One is the accuracy of the damage function. The estimation of the damage caused by the climate change involves great uncertainties. The scientist is working very hard, but still many things are left unknown. Another issue is the effect of tipping element. Tipping element can be explained like this. If the progress of an event exceeds a critical point, negative feedback of the Earth system may stop functioning and the changes may be accelerated. For example, the Siberian permafrost melting progresses due to the global warming. Underground methane and CO2 are released in the atmosphere so that the climate change was escalated. So we need to take into account of tipping element. So this year, the latest IJ analysis includes a special focus of tipping element analysis, taking into account of Greenland ice melt, permafrost carbon feedback, coral reef, Antarctic ice sheet with marine ice cliff instabilities. And these charts simply illustrate, yes, of course, if we take into account of some of the tipping element, the total cost will increase. But with some exception, most of the cases indicate the cost increase is very small. And even if there are some cases which show that the substantial increase in the total cost, these cost is still lower than the 2 degrees scenario on your second left-hand side. And we also made a special analysis on this effect with different discount rate for the future. Discount rate is a very powerful measure to take into account of the values for the future. If we adopt the low discount rate on your right-hand side picture, the future damage cost is calculated larger than the normal discount rate. But again, we found that even if employed at the low discount rate, the validity of total cost minimization is not very much affected. So we will continue to see that the global energy transition in this world. 20th century, now we are entering in the 21st century. Again, there are so many uncertainties and challenges are here with us. But probably we will need to continue to depend on our energy technology and to, in particular, the innovative technology, and also with our knowledge and our wisdom, we need to minimize the transition cost to a more cleaner and safer energy world. So I'll stop here and thank you very much indeed for your attention and for your great listening. I'll be happy to respond to your question and comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Prof. Dr. Ken Koyama, for your pleasant, informative, and insightful presentation. We believe all the participants were enjoying and will be benefited as well. Based on the participation, we have received a significant number of questions from our audience. But due to the time limitation, let me place some of the selected questions to our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Ken Koyama, to answer.
Okay, I'm very happy to do that.
We are just trying to project all the questions to the system. Just give us some moment for a while. There is some problem with internet. Okay, let me read the first question for a while. Then
Please.
After that, maybe we'll try to. Okay.
Okay.
We have received several numbers of questions, but let me read one of the questions from one of the audience. The question is, looking at the digitalization effort taking place during the Corona and Industry Revolution 4.0, where business starts moving their operations online, which required more reliance on electricity. Will the industry able to meet such demand, and will that affect the carbon zero target worldwide?
Okay, I think that's a very good and great question. Probably you may know, as I mentioned, that Japan is now endeavoring on the effort to achieve the carbon neutrality in the year 2050s. And I myself and IEJ is very much involved in this very serious discussion inside Japan. And of course, that actual conclusion is yet to achieve or yet to be seen. But one key important common understanding is that we need to further enhance our electrification effort. And if we really make this effort very seriously, very clearly, electricity demand will increase. Tentative analysis suggests if we really want to achieve the carbon neutrality target, our electricity demand in the year 2050 will be larger by about 30% as compared to the non-carbon neutrality scenario. So Japan is a large electricity consumer in the world. If my memory is correct, it's the 5th largest electricity consumer in the world. And this electricity demand level can be larger by 30% if we really want to meet the carbon neutrality target. Why carbon neutrality target increase the energy demand, electricity demand? This relies on the simplistic reality that the electricity sector is known as relatively easiest sector to decarbonize. I said relatively, but as compared to the other sector like transportation or heat use, electricity is much easier. So the prescription is quite simple: electrify if you want to carbon neutral. So even if you are not really going to carbon neutral, if you really want to reduce GHG, electrification will be the keyword. And also, as the question mentioned, the effect of Corona social transformation will further accelerate the electrification. So all in all, we will see the large demand growth caused by Corona transformation as well as carbon neutral pushback. So I think this is a very important issue to understand for the future. I'll stop here.
Prof, we have some more interesting questions.
Okay.
Let me go to the second questions. Can you see the slides, please?
Yes, I can see.
Or do you? Okay. Okay. Otherwise, I can read for you.
Okay. Yes, I think this is also a very good question, and I agree this the observation of this question. Mr. Biden's promised the net zero emission for the power sector in the United States in the year 2035, and economy-wide carbon neutrality in the year 2050, and to which clearly the non-fossil energy technology like renewable need to play a bigger and bigger role. And I think that there are many policy advisors surrounding Mr. Biden is very much friendly to renewable energy. But at the same time, I noted that the Biden administration and Mr. Biden himself is not pushing the renewable only. The key word is technology neutral. What the technology neutral is, he welcomes, the Biden administration can welcome all the energy technology as far as the technology can contribute to the greenhouse gas emission reduction. So in this sense, Mr. Biden will see that the nuclear power as an important source of zero carbon energy producer, and also other important technology like electrification by EV, and also hydrogen, blue ammonia, and other technology which can contribute to the GHG reduction will be promoted by Biden administration. But at the same time, so far, the policy advisor surrounding Mr. Biden will push the phasing out of existing fossil fuels like coal and even natural gas. So far, the Biden administration approach may be a little bit different from that of Mr. Trump. So we need to be very careful what will be the effect of actual policy tools and policy implementation by Mr. Biden. And finally, I would like to make one point. Mr. Biden is known as a very, very environmental friendly person, and his government is supported by clean energy technology specialists. and also that the climate change friend for the protection of climate change. But the issue is that the division inside the United States is so severe. About half of the population in the United States is still support Republican and Mr. Trump. And among half of the population, of course, support Mr. Biden. But inside the Democratic Party, there is a strong division among leftist or the Green Party and the Moderate Party and Conservative Party. So under these political realities, it will be very difficult to have the legislation with the budget to protect, to go on the Mr. Biden's energy and environmental policy. That's why, so far, Mr. Biden depends on the executive order, presidential order. But if he really want to achieve the real carbon neutral target supported by clean energy technology, the success in legislation, success in budget making is the key, which in my view is very, very difficult at this moment. I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, can we go for the next question, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a question which depends on some kind of reality and actuality in this real world. Yes, the gray hydrogen is produced from fossil fuel or natural gas, but the fate of gray hydrogen is not so optimistic in my views, because in the end, many countries and many regions will try to reduce CO2 emission or GHG very significantly. And in this end, in this purpose, gray hydrogen will not play a very significant, important contribution to the reduction of CO2. But if we really want to achieve the blue hydrogen, or even the blue ammonia from natural gas, it will contribute to the significant reduction of CO2. So the dependence on CCS will be the key technology. That's why Japan will make a very serious effort to develop an international supply chain of blue hydrogen and blue ammonia in a bid to contribute to the global CO2 emission reduction on top of the Japan CO2 emission reduction. That's why last year, Japan and Saudi Arabia made the global first announcement of CO2-free ammonia, blue ammonia shipment from Saudi Arabia to Japan. Why blue ammonia? It's related to the cost reduction again. Blue hydrogen is a great concept, but if the hydrogen can be exported from resource-rich country to Japan as a net energy import countries, the transportation of hydrogen is very costly, because hydrogen can be liquefied in the extreme low temperature, like below 250 degrees. But blue ammonia can be transported within the existing technology and existing infrastructure. The cost is much, much lower. So blue ammonia can be used as a bridge to the blue hydrogen. So in any case, gray hydrogen, we can continue to use, continue to depend, but much depends on the future speed of the effort to decarbonize the system. And if we again want to really reduce the GHG in the future, the gray hydrogen will not play a bigger role. I'll stop here.
Okay, Prof. We have some more questions. What do you think? Is your time allowed us to ask, or?
Okay, so I'm happy to respond to one or two questions.
Okay. So we can go to the next question. Question number 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, this is also very important issues. And the keyword is EV here. And this is clearly in the case of the United States. And as I mentioned, one of the prescription to reach the carbon neutrality is electrification. The drive for the electrification is very, very strong if we really want to achieve the carbon neutrality. And one of the reasons why that electrification is a key is the relative easiness of the zero emission of the electric sectors, power generation sectors. But transportation sector is known as rather difficult, but one of the possible key prescription is a promotion of EV to reduce the dependence on the fossil fuel-based engine or fossil fuel-based transportation economy. That's why EV may play a bigger role in this carbon neutral target world. So of course, the government may naturally see that the importance of the target for the transportation sector. The United States and Japan and China and EU all try to promote the zero emission vehicle, in particular in EV. In Japan, we will also promote the FCV, fuel cell vehicle, because we have the top runner of fossil fuel cell vehicle like Toyota. But other countries, United States, China, they are very keen on the concept of the promotion of EV. And electric vehicle and the battery technology will become a very, very important element for the future of energy story. That's why if we depend on the battery system, the important strategic material like lithium will become the key part. So the government policy to protect the security of important material will going to the very serious matters in terms of energy and economic security. I will stop here.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, we have many questions, but due to the time limitations, especially we would like to say sorry to our audience that we are moving to the last question to Prof. Ken Koyama. Okay.
Oh, AI. Yeah, again, this is a very important question. Of course, that digitalization or digital transformation includes numbers of innovative technology in this area. AI clearly will going to play a very important role to maximize the efficiency of the economic operation and to have the innovative approach to address energy demand supply management. So I do believe that AI and other very innovative ICT information technology will be the key part of the story. That's why United States and in China is now competing in the area of IT, AI, IoT. So whether who will be the winner of this area will be the center part of technology supremacy between the United States and China. So I think that this adoption and the use of AI will be the very, very important issue for the world of energy in the future. stop here. I'll stop here.
Thank you again, Professor Dr. Ken Koyama, for answering those questions and for the great presentation as well. It was our enormous pleasure to have you with us today. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking forward to your kind and sincere cooperation regarding the feedback on this session. Kindly submit the feedback form by clicking the link on Q&A feature. We will be really grateful to receive your kind feedback and improve us further. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost end of our event. Before closing, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Ken Koyama and thank you so much for your kind time and presentation. We really appreciate it. We also would like to convey our special thanks to the management of University Tenaga National and Energy Commission for their continuous support. Without that, we could not have managed this such event. Thanks a lot to the IPRI team for their hard working, especially Dr. Sitin Dati Mustafa, Honorable Director of IPRI, for guiding us to be in the right track. Last but not least, thank you everyone for your active participation. Without it, our session would not have been successful. We hope to see you again in our next webinar series. Till then, take care and stay safe. Thank you so much.